You hold a golden invitation in your hands. On the envelope it says, "Time travel to 254 million years ago." Your heart races as you open the envelope, imagining pterodactyls soaring through primitive skies, and other majestic dinosaurs that lived during this time. But I'm sorry to inform you, you've just won a one-way ticket to the real hell on Earth. Welcome to the Lopingian, the final chapter of the Permian period, unfolding between 259 and 252 million years ago. This name probably means nothing to you right now, but soon, you'll understand why paleontologists break into a cold sweat just thinking about living during this era. First, let's adjust your geographic expectations. Forget about the continents you know. All the land masses on the planet are squeezed into one supercontinent called Pangaea. The first thing you'd notice upon stepping into this world would be the heat. We're talking about an oven-hot climate, with the average global temperature hovering around 95 degrees Fahrenheit, almost double the Earth's current average temperature. Near the equator, vast deserts stretched for thousands of miles, nearly devoid of life. Pangaea's central mountains created a natural barrier that blocked moisture, turning massive regions into furnaces. And here's a disturbing detail. The days lasted only 22 hours. Your biological clock would be utterly disoriented, as the sun would rise and set at an alien pace, making each day just a bit shorter, but no less unbearable. But temperature and geography are just the backdrop. The true stars of this prehistoric nightmare are about to make their entrance, and believe me, they'll make you wish you'd never opened that golden envelope. If you were unlucky enough to walk across the plains of the Lopingian, the first significant predator you'd encounter would be a member of a group so terrifying, paleontologists named them after the Gorgons, those mythological creatures whose gaze turned people to stone. Gorgonopsids completely dominated the terrestrial ecosystems. Discovered in 1876, their fossils revealed features that would make any modern predator look like a harmless puppy. They had curved, saber-like canine teeth, terrifyingly large, some reaching up to 15 centimeters long. These natural daggers were designed for deep punctures and catastrophic bleeding. The undisputed king of this group was Inostrancevia. At 3.5 meters long and weighing over 450 kilograms, this predator was the size of a brown bear, but with the agility of a big cat. Its sturdy, surprisingly long limbs allowed for high-speed chases, where you wouldn't escape by climbing a tree, and you certainly wouldn't outrun it. Inostrancvia's hunting technique is still debated among experts. Some believe it attacked like saber-toothed tigers, targeting the prey's neck for a quick death through suffocation or artery rupture. Others suggest a more sadistic tactic: bite and retreat, letting the victim slowly bleed out while the predator patiently followed, waiting for the inevitable collapse. But here's the real horror. Inostrancevia wasn't alone. In South Africa, an entire subfamily of giant gorgonopsids evolved independently. Rubigia in particular had a skull that made up 15% of its total body length, with evidence of bone protrusions suggesting a bite designed to latch onto and not let go of large, powerful prey. Fossil evidence suggests multiple species of gorgonopsids coexisted in the same territories. Imagine walking through a plain and having to worry not about one but half a dozen different types of saber-toothed predators, each specialized in a different kind of horrific death. As if the gorgonopsids weren't enough, the Lopingian was also the playground of the therapsids. This diverse group included some of the most bizarre and lethal creatures of the period. Muscarina stood out as a true nightmare, about the size of a jaguar, but with a head that seemed borrowed from a lion. Its numerous sharp, cone-shaped teeth, combined with incredibly powerful jaws, suggested a brutal hunting technique, immobilizing the prey with muscular forelimbs before literally tearing it apart with devastating bites. But the real surprise comes with evidence that some therapsids might have been venomous. Lopingian and Megawaitzia display cranial structures suggesting the presence of venom glands. Apparently, having giant saber-toothed predators wasn't terrifying enough. If confirmed, these would be the first known venomous land vertebrates. Megawaitzia deserves special mention. At 3 meters long, it was the largest known therapsid. Fossilized feces found in its territories contained remains of large herbivores, suggesting this predator wasn't afraid to hunt substantial prey. The possibility that it injected venom through multiple ducts with its bite adds an extra layer of horror to its hunting technique. The Chronosuchians developed a different strategy. Armor, covered in bony plates along their backs. These medium-sized predators could afford to be bolder in their hunts, protected against counterattacks from desperate prey or even other predators. Amidst this carnage festival, herbivores developed fascinating survival strategies. The Lystrosaurus, the size of a pig, survived by digging deep burrows, an innovative solution that offered protection from both predators and the scorching surface heat. At the opposite end, the Scutosaurus became a living tank, weighing over 1,200 kilograms and covered in bony plates and spines. This herbivore was slow but practically impenetrable. Its muscles were so dense that even the saber teeth of the gorgonopsids would struggle to cause significant damage. Surprisingly, the relatively safest place in the Lopingian was the sky. Unlike the later Mesozoic with its giant parasaurs, the Permian didn't have large aerial predators. The biggest flying animals were the Wygoltosaurids, gliding reptiles no bigger than large bats, primarily feeding on insects. The giant ancient dragonflies of the Carboniferous had disappeared, victims of falling atmospheric oxygen levels. This lack of aerial predators meant that at least you wouldn't have to worry about attacks from above, a small comfort in a world where danger lurked literally everywhere else. But all this killer biodiversity was just the warm-up for the true horror show. Around 252 million years ago, Earth began to transform into something truly apocalyptic. A series of volcanic eruptions that would cover an area the size of Europe, lava, ash, and toxic gases in unimaginable amounts. The already unbearable global temperature shot up even further. In some regions, the average annual temperature reached levels comparable to Death Valley during its hottest month. The carbon dioxide and sulfur ejected created acid rains that dissolved entire forests. Oxygen levels plummeted, creating vast dead zones where nothing could survive. Studies suggest the ozone layer was severely damaged, increasing ultraviolet radiation by up to 5,000% in some areas. Imagine stepping into the sun and starting to burn within seconds. The oceans heated to jacuzzi temperatures and became acidic, dissolving shells and corals into a deadly chemical soup. What followed was the greatest mass extinction in Earth's history, aptly called the Great Dying. When the volcanic ash finally settled, 96% of all marine species had disappeared. On land, 70% of vertebrates were wiped out. In total, 57% of all biological families and 83% of all genera were erased from the fossil record. To put this in perspective, the extinction that killed the dinosaurs, 186 million years later, wiped out only 17% of biological families. The Great Dying was an almost complete reset of life on Earth. The magnificent gorgonopsids, despite their power and adaptability, were completely wiped out. No lineage survived. The therapsids suffered devastating losses, with only a few small species making it into the Triassic period. Ironically, some of the most successful survivors were the burrowers like the Lystrosaurus. Their underground burrows provided protection from extreme temperatures and deadly radiation. For a brief time after the extinction, the Lystrosaurus represented up to 95% of all land vertebrates, a post-apocalyptic world ruled by burrowing pigs. But from this devastation came opportunity. The ecological niches left empty by the Great Dying created space for new life forms to evolve. A small group of reptiles called archosaurs, who barely survived the extinction, would eventually give rise to dinosaurs, crocodiles, and birds. The few surviving therapsids would continue to evolve, eventually giving rise to mammals. So now that our virtual journey through the Lopingian comes to an end, let's reconsider that golden envelope. If someone really offered you a time travel trip to this period, you should politely decline or perhaps suggest the late Cretaceous instead. At least with dinosaurs, you'd know what to expect. The Lopingian teaches us a humbling lesson about the fragility of life and Earth's ability to turn into a literal hell. It was a time when survival itself was a daily victory, where saber-toothed predators the size of bears roamed in packs. Water was theoretically safe, but hid amphibians the size of cars, and even the air could kill you. But it also shows us the incredible resilience of life. Even after the worst mass extinction in history, life found a way. From the ashes of the Permian came the age of dinosaurs, and eventually, our own age. Maybe the real lesson of the Lopingian is this: no matter how bad our current problems may seem, At least we're not competing with gorgonopsids for resources. We don't need to dig burrows to escape venomous saber-toothed predators. And we're definitely not breathing air with 5,000 more UV radiation. Sometimes, living in the present doesn't seem so bad after all. Thank you for joining this journey to the true hell on Earth. And remember, next time someone says they were born in the wrong era, show them the Lopingian Period. I guarantee they'll change their mind quickly.
Rapidamente